When building an electrical service for a duplex, several factors influence the overall cost. Two primary methods to consider are shallow trenching with conduit and using an overhead line. Let's examine the cost components and some strategies for saving money. Firstly, consider shallow trenching with conduit. This involves digging trenches, typically 12 to 18 inches deep, to house the electrical conduit. The depth can vary depending on local codes and the presence of other utilities. Install conduit that meets electrical code requirements, paying close attention to size and material specifications. Then, backfill the trenches to protect the conduit. The cost considerations for trenching are multifaceted. Labor and equipment rental costs will fluctuate depending on the length and depth of the trenches required. Longer and deeper trenches necessitate more time and resources, increasing the overall expense. Material costs for conduit, fittings, and wire pulling compound must also be factored in. Conduit material options include polyvinyl chloride, also known as PVC, rigid metal conduit, also known as RMC, and electrical metallic tubing, also known as EMT, each with varying price points and suitability for different applications. Secondly, consider an overhead line. This involves installing a service pole near the duplex and running an overhead line to a weatherhead on the roof. This weatherhead is essentially a protective entry point for electrical conductors entering a building. Connect the overhead line to a meter and service panel for each unit in the duplex. This is crucial for separate metering, allowing each tenant to be billed for their electricity consumption independently. Overhead lines necessitate poles and approved hardware designed for outdoor electrical distribution. The cost considerations for overhead lines include the pole itself, wire, hardware, and installation fees. Obtaining necessary permits from local authorities is often a requirement, potentially adding to the overall cost. Moving on to electrical equipment. Regardless of the chosen method, certain electrical components are essential, including the service panel, meter, ground rods, and related hardware. Selecting appropriately sized service panels for each unit is important, taking into account the anticipated electrical load. Ground rods are critical for safety, providing a path for fault current to the earth, minimizing the risk of electrical shock. Labor costs represent a significant portion of the overall expense. An electrical contractor's fees will cover installation, wiring, and inspections. Engaging a licensed electrician is essential to ensure compliance with local codes and regulations and to guarantee safety. Now let's look at some additional tips to save money. Consider using smaller conduit sizes, as they are generally less expensive. The appropriate conduit size depends on the number and gauge of wires being run, so be sure to consult with an electrician to ensure compliance with electrical codes. Purchase materials in bulk to take advantage of potential discounts. Electrical suppliers often offer price reductions for larger orders. Hire an experienced electrician who can optimize materials and labor costs. A skilled electrician can efficiently manage the project, minimizing waste and ensuring proper installation. Explore rebates or incentives from local utilities or government agencies. Many utilities offer programs to encourage energy-efficient upgrades or cost-effective electrical installations. If possible, place the service entrances near each other to save on trenching or line materials. This minimizes the distance between the power source and the duplex, reducing the amount of material needed. Regarding estimated costs, it's important to note that the exact costs will vary significantly based on factors such as location, terrain, and materials used. As a general estimate, shallow trenching with conduit may range from $1,500 to $3,000 per unit, while an overhead line may range from $2,000 to $4,000 per unit. These are only rough estimates, and it is imperative to obtain detailed quotes from licensed electricians in your area. Additional considerations include the amperage of the service required for each unit. The amperage rating dictates the size of the service panel, wiring, and other components. A higher amperage service will generally cost more. Also consider the local electrical codes and regulations, which can vary from one jurisdiction to another. Compliance with these codes is mandatory, and failure to comply can result in fines or delays. Obtaining the necessary permits before starting any work is crucial. Permits ensure that the installation meets all safety standards. Factors influencing the choice between trenching and overhead lines include the distance from the power source to the duplex. Longer distances may favor overhead lines due to low material costs, while shorter distances may make trenching more economical. Soil conditions can also play a role. Rocky or unstable soil may increase the cost of trenching. Aesthetic considerations may also influence the decision. Some homeowners prefer the look of underground wiring, while others may find overhead lines acceptable. Maintenance requirements should also be considered. Underground wiring is generally less susceptible to damage from weather or falling trees, while overhead lines may require periodic inspection and maintenance. Before making a final decision, it's advisable to obtain multiple quotes from licensed electricians. Comparing quotes can help to ensure that you are getting a fair price. It is also a good idea to check the electrician's credentials and references to ensure they are qualified to perform the work. In addition to the initial installation costs, it's important to consider the long-term operating costs. Energy-efficient appliances and lighting can help to reduce electricity consumption and lower utility bills. Properly insulating the duplex can also help to reduce energy costs. Furthermore, consider the future needs of the duplex. If there is a possibility of adding additional electrical loads in the future, it's wise to install a service panel that is large enough to accommodate those loads. This can avoid the need for costly upgrades later on. Safety should always be the top priority when working with electricity. Never attempt to perform electrical work unless you are qualified and experienced. Always turn off the power before working on any electrical circuits. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as rubber gloves and safety glasses. If you are unsure about any aspect of the electrical installation, consult with a licensed electrician. Remember, electricity can be dangerous, and it's always better to be safe than sorry. By carefully considering all of these factors, you can make an informed decision about the most cost-effective way to build an electrical service for your duplex. Remember to consult with a licensed electrician for a detailed quote and to ensure that the installation meets all safety codes and regulations. This ensures a safe and reliable electrical system for both units. In summary, the cheapest way to build a service for duplex involves carefully considering trenching versus overhead lines, optimizing material purchases, hiring experienced electricians, exploring rebates, and planning for future electrical needs while always prioritizing safety and code compliance.